So here's the thing. I like reading books and I like buying them. But sometimes I don't read as fast as I would want, and I end up with way too many unread books on my bookshelves. I actually have no clue how many TBR books are on my shelves, but we're gonna find out together today in this video. I'm a bit intimidated, but at the same time, I'm not one of those people who is embarrassed by having books on their shelves that they haven't read. Everyone loves to collect something, and books are that thing for me. I love spending my money on books, on physical books. I love curating a bookshelf that speaks to my interests. Whether I have read all of them or not, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just happy to have them. And I get so much joy out of finishing a book and then being like, okay, it's time to pick up a new one. And then I go to my bookshelves and I just kind of browse through and see what speaks to my mood and what speaks to my current interests and passions and what I want to explore. So I love buying books and I love having unread books on my shelves. But I am just a little bit curious to know how many exactly I have of them. So we're going to go through my entire bookshelf. And I also have some other books in other places of the house, which I'm going to show you after. But first, we're going to go through the entire bookshelf and basically count how many unread books I have. And then I'm also going to briefly mention all of them to you. If that sounds good to you, grab your drink and join the video. Okay, so my bookshelves are separated by genre-ish, very kind of loosely speaking. And here in the very first shelf, we have a lot of kind of romance and some contemporary fiction type things. And I have my very official little notebook with my pen. Hey! We're doing good. This first whole entire thing, there's only 5 books that I haven't read. Kind of amazing, if you ask me. This is the Love Story Anatomy duology by Dana Schwartz. I've read both of those. Love those. From these, the first one that I have not read is Say You Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This is one of her newest releases, and I'm really excited to get to it. I then also have this one, which I found very randomly on a website. It's called The Lodge, and it's a romance by Kayla Olson that is set in Vermont, like on a ski trip situation in Vermont. And I literally just picked it out because of that setting. Like, I love the mountains in Vermont. I love Vermont as a place in general. It's so dreamy. And I'm all about wintry romances, so I'm excited about that one. I also have not read Wayward by Emilia Hart. First of all, I just love the cover. It's super intricate with all the little details of the mushrooms and all the birds and the insects. It's so cute. This is about witches. I guess it's gonna be an autumnal read. I then read most of these. The next one I haven't read is The Grace of Wild Things by Heather Fawcett. I feel like Heather Fawcett for me is either a very hard hit or a very hard miss. I've read Amber and the Ice Dragons, which I loved, and then I read Emily's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which I didn't really like. That's why I've been like, I don't know if I should pick this up. I'm scared I'm gonna waste my time with it, but I don't know. I'll still keep it for a while and then we'll see if I pick it up. I've read all of these, and this is the last one on this shelf that I have not read, which is actually a historical fiction. I've heard nothing about this book. I literally just saw it once in a thrift store and I thought it looked interesting, and it's set in Venice, and I'm like, I love Italy, so I'm just gonna pick it up. It's called The Midwife of Venice by Roberta Rich. Alright, so as the shelves continue, this is still very much kind of just contemporary fiction, I guess I would call it. It's just a bunch of like random hardbacks I have here, and these, most of them are contemporary. I don't know, it's just a mishmash of books. Okay, let me count how many I haven't read. It's getting worse. We're at 12 books now that I have not read on this particular shelf, so let me go through them. We have Alias Grace. Oh my goodness, this thing keeps falling all the time. Ugh. The first unread here is Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. I don't have the dust jacket because I thought it was ugly and I took it off. And now I don't know the synopsis because I took off the dust jacket that had the synopsis on it. I have read from Atwood before The Handmaid's Tale, which I really enjoyed, so I'm thinking I will probably like this one as well. The next one that I haven't read is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. I have read from S.T. Gibson, what is it? The Dowry in Blood? A Dowry in Blood? Is that? Yeah, A Dowry in Blood. And I really liked it. I think this is also kind of retelling-ish about vampires. I think it's loosely based on Carmilla. And then the next one is also a bit of a spookier book. It's The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. And I believe it's the story of 3 female protagonists coming together and helping each other in uncovering some great secret or something. I have started this series, so I have 2 books here that I have not read yet. This is The Irish Country Doctor by Patrick Taylor. It's this huge series that it's basically not much happens. It's just the story of this doctor who gets appointed to go and work in the countryside. It's just his life in the countryside, learning to be in this new community, which is really cool to me. So these are the next books in the series that I have to get to. Then we have this one by Grady Hendrix, which is a Final Girls support group. So I read from Grady Hendrix the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, but I really love that book. It was really, really, really fun. And so I picked this one up because of that, because I loved what he did there with that book. And then I read reviews. People absolutely hate this. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I bought it now. So do I trust the author or do I trust the reviewers? I actually have not read any of these, so I'll just go through them. We have The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I also have here The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, which I heard is a really, really, really good kind of more historical fiction that has some magical elements to it, I believe. And the last one here is I'm not even sure what this is. I think it's part of a series, but I just bought it because it's about Christmas. The story of Christmas in this small village, and you see the whole community getting ready for Christmas, and I think that's so cute and sweet. But I haven't read it yet. I'm not sure if I have to read the books in order or if I could just read this as a standalone, because that's kind of what I was planning to do. And lastly, we just have here, I'm not gonna take them out, but it's basically the 3 remaining books in the Anne of Green Gables series. So I read the first 5, and I have 6, 7, and 8 to yet still read, and I am planning to read them this year. All right, we're just going to move down, and in this category is very similar types of books as in the previous ones. So not as much romance, but a bunch of random contemporary works. One, we have 9 that are unread. The first unread book here is If We Were Villains by Emma Rio. I heard a lot of people love this one. It's like the perfect dark academia book. I haven't read many dark academia books. Here's my take on dark academia. I like the aesthetic. I'm not sure I love the book genre situation, mainly because most dark academia books have something to do with a mystery or a murder mystery, and murder mysteries are just really not my cup of tea. But I do think this one could potentially be interesting. A lot of people like the more literary aspect it takes on, so I might like this one. The next one is Alice Munro, Lives of Girls and Women. I don't know exactly what this is about, but it's probably about the lives of some women and some girls. The next one here is actually a Romanian novel. How do you pronounce her name? Is it Chirasergi? It's called Pânza de Păianjen, which kind of translates as the web of the spider. Last time I went to Romania, one of my good friends recommended this book to me because I do want to get more into Romanian literature. I am Romanian, but I don't consume a lot of Romanian media, a lot of Romanian books, a lot of Romanian literature, and I really would like to change that. I'm sure that there are many beautiful literary pieces, and I would really like to get into them and to learn about them. Next, I believe this is kind of, I don't know if it's considered a Canadian classic, which is The Orenda by Joseph Boyden. We also have a little bit of Stephen King here. I have bought my next Stephen King book that I would like to get to. I did a whole video on reading Stephen King last year, and I got a lot of good recommendations as to new Stephen King books that I could pick up because I'm very much a beginner when it comes to Stephen King. So I bought Cujo, which really, really scares me because I love dogs, and I think this is a book about a not very well-behaved dog. This one I'm very intrigued by. I found it randomly at a bookstore. This is Kintu by Jennifer Nansubunga Makumbi, and basically what this is about, and I'm just gonna read the back because I don't really remember exactly. Kintu is a modern classic, a multi-layered narrative that reimagines the history of Uganda through the cursed bloodline of the Kintu clan. Yeah, very cool, very interested in that. I really would like to get more into African literature or just literature that is set in Africa, which I have already started doing in 2026, so I'm really happy about that. And this is also one that is on my TBR. Okay, I have read these. Oh, I haven't read this one. This is Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, which is basically the story about an AI who becomes friends or friendly with a human. And I guess in the world where AI is becoming increasingly important, it would be important to read about it. Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi. This is kind of a reimagining, but not really reimagining, like loosely taking the concept of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and really reapplying it to a completely different setting, which is basically the idea of Baghdad being bombed and occupied by the US. And in the story, we follow this guy who starts to gather parts of the bodies of the people who have been mutilated by these attacks and putting them back together as to kind of show the world that these are real people. These are not just body parts, but they have belonged once to someone. And I believe at some point it kind of takes life. It's kind of a reimagining of what was done with Frankenstein, which sounds super, super interesting and a very smart way to recontextualize a big classic. Next one here is actually one that I'm extremely excited to read. This was gifted to me by my mom this Christmas, and it's The Eclipse of the Crescent Moon by Giza Gardoni. And it's I don't know if it's a classic or just like a big work of Hungarian literature. So my mom is partly Hungarian, and she told me that this is the first book that really got her into reading, and it is actually historical fiction about a very important period in time in the history of Hungary. So I'm really, really excited about this one, and I really like the cover as well. Very intriguing. Alrighty, so here, this book I will count it as unread because it's a collection of Shakespeare's plays, and I've read a few, but I haven't read them all, and I certainly have not read the majority of them, so I'll just count it as unread. And then here, if you're wondering what is in this beautiful big box, it's a first edition of Charles Dickens. It's a collection also of a couple of his works, but I think the predominant bigger work of his is Hard Times, which I also have not read, so both of these are unread. This is basically where we abandon the mishmash of literary fiction or whatever the hell, and we get into something a bit more substantial in terms of genre. So we have here sci-fi, and then this is kind of a section break, and then from here down, it's basically fantasy. Okay, so I'm not sure how to count this because both of these are technically 3 books in one. Okay, I will just count them as 2 because that's how they are on my bookshelf. They're technically 2 books. In that case, we have 5 books on the shelf. Project Hail Mary, which I know is incredibly beloved. Everyone that speaks about this says that it's just amazing, even people who don't like sci-fi. And this is a big priority for me when it comes to sci-fi to really get to this one. I don't actually know if this is sci-fi, but I feel like it's sci-fi, so I just put in the sci-fi section. This is a canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. When I read the synopsis, it just seemed incredibly interesting. It's basically set in a dystopian future. In a nightmarish ruined world, slowly awakening to the light after sleeping in darkness, the infant rediscoveries of science are secretly nourished by cloistered monks dedicated to the study of the preservation of the relics and writings of the blessed Saint Isaac Leibowitz. That sentence just makes me want to read the book right away. It's super interesting. A recreation or a reinvention of science after the world has ended in some capacity, I assume. And then we have here Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I've read a couple of his fantasy books, but I've never really read anything from him sci-fi related, so I'm really excited to try this one out. And then the 2 remaining books on the shelf that I haven't read, which are actually 6 books, Frank Herbert's Dune, so books 1 to 3, and then books 4 to 6. And then the Harry Potter books, I've read them all. Alright, we're going to scooch in here. So this whole entire shelf actually is fantasy, and I counted off camera how many are unread. and it's a little embarrassing. It's a little bit embarrassing. So this whole entire portion, I have 15 books unread. So this one's read, but I haven't read Shadows of Self from Brandon Sanderson, Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson, and the last book in the Mistborn Second Era is The Lost Metal, which I also have not read yet. Hopefully gonna get to all 3 of these this year, because I would love to finish Mistborn Era 2 this year. Also got Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, also by Brandon Sanderson. Didn't get to this one yet. And then another book by him. Well, this is really a collection. I have read from this collection a couple of works at this point, but again, it's not the majority. I don't consider it fully read, which is the Arcanum Unbounded, so I'll count it as unread. And then we have just a couple kind of random fantasies that when I saw them, I thought they sounded really interesting and I bought them for that reason. But now I'm not sure anymore if they're worth my time. So the first one is The Winter Duke. So this sounds really interesting. I love winter books and I love winter as a setting. But then when I read some of the reviews, they said that the book is just a bit bland. Like it's very political, which is kind of interesting, but the rest of the book is just kind of bland. So I'm not sure if I want to commit so many hours to something I will find just meh. The next one is The Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan, which gives me a lot of Lord of the Rings type of vibes. Heard some YouTubers talk about this, saying it's a really grand and great fantasy series. I was coaching the whole time and hurting my back, and then I realized that you can actually see me all the way if I just stand normally, so I'm gonna stand normally from now on. Then next we have another wintry fantasy book. I believe this is YA or even maybe middle grade. This is Winterwood. I basically did not read this entire shelf. But the next one I have Stephen King's Fairy Tale, which I believe is one of the only kind of more fantastical works that he's written. It's really interesting because this really appeals to me, but not a lot of people talk about it. So then I'm like, is it good? Is it not good because people don't talk about it? Is it just a hidden gem that I might really actually enjoy? And I do love the cover. Next, we have the third book in the Winter House Mysteries series, and I plan to read this one this spring. Then here we have the Game of Thrones books. I have read book 1 and book 2, and I have not read the remaining books in the series. It's kind of also because I know that the series is unfinished, and so I'm going to spend so much time reading all of these because they're also chunky and huge, and then I'm going to feel very unfulfilled because there's no conclusion to it. So yeah, that kind of really demotivates me from reading the rest of the books. Here we have both books in the Shepherd King series. So we have One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. A lot of people love the series for fall in particular, but I feel like it's so dark and ominous that it would be good even as a kind of late January, early February, just kind of like a dark winter story, although I know it's not particularly wintry. And then these 2 remaining ones are also all fantasy. This one is basically just the books from the Lord of the Rings series. I have The Hobbit and the 3 books from the Lord of the Rings. And I'm just displaying them because they're so chef's kiss beautiful, but I haven't read any of them. So I haven't read these, and then this is another 2 series which I also have not read, so this is in total 9 books that I haven't read any of them. Well, that's depressing, but I'm really planning to do that in 2026. I said the exact same thing in 2025, so we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? But this one is by Leigh Bardugo. I know she's a really beloved author. I have not read from her yet. I have the first series, which is the Shadow and Bone. So I have Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising. I have started Shadow and Bone a while ago, and I don't know, it just felt a bit bland. It just felt like it had all the elements of what a fantasy is supposed to be, but for some reason I just didn't feel connected to the characters. But I mean, I did only read 50 pages, so it's not like I read the whole thing. So I would really, really like to give it another shot. And then the one that I'm most intrigued by, because I know a lot of people love these 2 books, it's the Six of Crows and The Crooked Kingdom. But yeah, I do have plans to read these in 2026 to finally see what the hype is about. All right, we are continuing. Basically, the remaining 3 shelves Not all, but most of it is classics. I already also counted these 3 shelves, so let's go through them. This one is also very embarrassing because I have not read many of these. So this is like a whole entire collection, and I haven't read anything from this collection. The first one here is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, which I really want to get to. I'm just so intimidated by the sheer size of it. I mean, look at this thing. Next, also by Charles Dickens, I have this beautiful edition of The Old Curiosity Shop, which I actually started reading and then I stopped for some reason, but I don't know why, because I really enjoyed reading it and I enjoy Charles Dickens' writing generally speaking, so I'm not sure why I stopped, but I really have to pick it back up. I have read these. I haven't read this one, which is Crime. It's in French, so I'm trying to translate. The Crime on the Orient Express, I guess, The Murder on the Orient Express. That's what it is in English. Agatha Christie. Honestly, I don't know, because I don't really like Agatha Christie. I've tried 2 of her novels before, and I hated both of them. Like, I just don't care what happens in a murder mystery. Like, I don't really care about the whole procedure of trying to figure out anything about who murdered who did what. I don't know. I kind of want to read it because it's a staple of classic literature, and I do love watching murder mystery types of movies, but for some reason the books is just a complete snooze fest for me. So yeah, I don't know if I'm ever gonna read that one. And the remaining books here is a complete series that I got from someone on Facebook Marketplace. And I love these books. They're so beautiful. They're basically all Victor Hugo, which is a huge French writer. There are a lot of them, but the 2 that I'm really excited about are Notre Dame de Paris and Les Misérables, which are both of these books. Both of these books are one book. But we also have other ones. We have Les Travailleurs de la Mer, L'Homme qui rit, 93, which I also heard is really good and actually is really beloved, even though it's not one of his most famous works. Oh, I think I didn't tell you, but on this shelf, we had 11 unread books. And then we move on this one, and we're doing a little bit better. We're only at 5 unread books, which is pretty good, especially because there are many more books on this shelf. So this is my little Italian section. Some of these, I guess, could be considered classics, but a lot of them are also just kind of more contemporary or modern classics. Maybe it's a better word to describe them. I have read most of these because I had to read them from my classes when I took Italian in my undergrad. But I have not read a couple. So I have not read Elena Ferrante, The Story of the New Name, which I'm really excited to get to, and it's in my plans of 2026. I also have not read La Mascherata by Alberto Moravia. I have read The Conformist, Il Conformista by him. This one I really enjoyed, and it was really an easy read for someone who's not native speaker of Italian. So you know, I still need reads that are a bit easier, and the vocabulary has to be a bit more basic level. So I think Moravia is a really great writer for that. And last time I was in Italy, I bought this one because I really would like to read more from him. I really like his writing style, and he has a particular interest in politics and exploring politics with a fictional lens, which I think is really cool. I have Il Ladro di Merendine by Andrea Camilleri. And it really does not attract me. Like, it just looks like a flimsy little book, but a lot of people say it's really good. So I should give this one a try. I also have not read this, which I was supposed to read for my class, but I did not. This one is The Ultime Lettere di Jacopo Ortis by Ugo Foscolo, which is basically like the last letters of Jacopo Ortis. I think it's a love story from what I recall from class discussions. I think the last one from this whole entire stack that I haven't read, also for class, because I was lazy and I was doing other things instead of reading my books. But I'm not going to take it out, but it's basically I think it's a murder mystery. It's by Sciascia, Il giorno della civetta. I'm not really interested in it because I don't like murder mystery, and I have read from Sciascia before and I also didn't like it, but I might give it a go. Here, these are more kind of classics from the English canon, not all of them. Like, this one is from French, this one's Russian, but most of these are more mainstream type of classics. And from here, I have not read 5 books, which is also decent. So let me see. Oh yes, this is the first one. So I have not read 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and I really, really, really want to get to this one. I am so sure I'm gonna love it. I have zero doubts in my mind that I will love this book. So I just need to get to it. I also have not read, interestingly enough, A Farewell to Arms by Hemingway, which is, I think, his most known or most like famous novel, and I really, really want to get to it. It sounds like a novel that will break my heart. Then I think all of these are read. Ooh, so this one is a collection, which I also will count towards unread because I haven't read all of these stories here. But this is a collection of Charles Dickens horror-ish stories or more supernatural type of stories. So actually, he's not really well known for this, but he wrote a lot of stuff about supernatural or more dark things, mostly in his short stories, not as much in his actual bigger novels, from my understanding. We also have here Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe, which I was also supposed to read for one of my classics. So then I bought it later on, and I'm like, okay, I was supposed to read it, so let me actually read it one day. I haven't found the time yet to get to it, but it's here. It's waiting for me. And so I've read this one. I haven't read The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, which is actually in my plans to do for 2026. This will get done. It will get read this year. All right, so we have made it to the last two big shelves. So here, the first part is basically my Throne of Glass series, and I have only read up to book number 3, which actually makes me very happy because it means there's so many more books to enjoy for me in this series. So here I'm missing 4 books from this small section, which is The Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash that I still have yet to read. So this is just a little interlude of fantasy, and the remaining books are continuing with the classics. So on this one, I have 14 books unread, which is a little bit sad, but you know, they're tinier, so it just kind of slipped through the cracks. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I have tried to read it. I've started annotating, and I also really, really enjoyed it, and I don't know why I put it down. I think I just got overwhelmed with work. Next one that I have that I also really want to get to is The Idiot by Dostoevsky. And lastly, from here, also a Russian classic, Home of the Gentry by Turgenev, which I also started reading and I put it down for some reason. I don't know why I keep doing that. That's one of my biggest pet peeves about myself, starting books and never finishing them. Continuing here, I have Graham Greene's The Quiet American. I have read from him The Tenth Man, which I really enjoyed. I don't know, I just picked it up because I really enjoyed the first book, but now I'm like, do I really want to read this one? It just, I don't know if it screams my name anymore. We have this one, so I technically did read this one, but it's been so long, and I have a feeling I only read sections of it for my class, so I kind of want to reread it properly so I can say, okay, I've read that book. And that's The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I also have to read Gabriel Garcia Marquez' Love in the Time of Cholera, which I also heard is very good, and some people even prefer it to 100 Years of Solitude, so I'm really excited about that one. I also want to pick up Orhan Pamuk, which is a very, very well-known and loved Turkish writer. And this is My Name is Red. My Name is Red is a transporting tale set amid the splendor and religious intrigue of 16th century Istanbul. Setting sounds incredible. I visited Istanbul earlier this year in the summer, and I love the city. I like the city, but what I love the most about it is just the culture that is imbued and like all the religious powers that kind of, you know, coexist. It's very rare, I would say, to see a city where so many different religions are able to coexist somewhat peacefully. Just a city that like stands apart because of its culture and its history from the rest of the world. I also have yet to read Jean Rhys's White Sargasso Sea, kind of retelling, reimagining of a particular character from, what is that classic's name? From Jane Eyre. There we go. I loved Jane Eyre. It's one of my favorite classics of all time, so really excited to get to this one. I also have not read this one. This is a play, and I'm not a huge lover of plays, and that's Arthur Miller's The Death of the Salesman. We also have some Wolf, Orlando in particular, which is probably the book that interests me and intrigues me the most from Virginia Woolf that I haven't read yet. And then I also have from her A Room All of One's Own, which I'm also really interested by, but I think this is more, I don't think this is fiction. I think it's more of a extended essay. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. John Steinbeck's The Winter of Our Discontent, which I wanted to pick up this winter because I thought it's set in winter because it said The Winter of Our Discontent, but it's actually not set in winter, and that really annoyed me, and I put it down. Ooh, this one I actually read the majority of it, but I haven't finished it, and so I'm going to mark it as unread and like give it a good read. That's The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter. I love this one. I don't know why I put it down. See, this is it's a problem. And lastly, we have here James Joyce Dubliners, which is, I believe, a collection of short stories from his. I have read from him The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, and I found this just too difficult for me. Like I feel like that type of book, you really need a professor to sit down with you and explain things to you to make it remotely interesting, because I felt that I was able to get the gist of it and what the author was putting forward, but I just couldn't enjoy it. But a lot of people said that The Dubliners is actually a really approachable collection of his, so I'm hoping I could read this one. And from here, I have 14 books unread, which is pretty good because there are a lot of books here. So from this stack, I have only not read The Monk by Matthew Gregory Lewis, which is actually a really interesting work of Gothic. I've read parts of it for my degree, but I haven't read the entire book. It's really, really interesting. It's the story of this monk, I believe, or someone who works in a church that gets seduced by a very attractive woman who is believed to be the devil. So that's really cool. And I guess the church itself makes it such a interesting setting for the Gothic. Oh yes, Flatland by Edwin A. Abbott. Romance of Many Dimensions. This is, I don't know, like this is not really classic. This was written, I believe he was a math teacher and he just wanted to explain dimensions to his students and to other people. And dimensions, you know, the concept of it, it's difficult to grasp if you're not a mathematician. So he basically wrote a fictionalized story about dimensions, which is a romance between, I believe, a figure in 2 dimensions and another figure in 3 dimensions, I think. So I think that's really, really cool and very nerdy. And I just want to read it for, you know, kind of the historical, scientific value of it. I also have Lazarillo de Tormes, which is I think it's a Spanish classic. Is it Spanish? This is basically written in Spanish. I have learned Spanish in college, but I would not even be able to have a conversation at this point in Spanish. I haven't practiced it in so long, but I'm able to read and I'm able to understand, but the issue is this is very, very old stuff. So I don't know if I would be able to understand this level of like old Spanish. But it's very short, so maybe I will give it a try. We also have On the Road by Jack Kerouac, which is basically, I think, the story of this man who decides to go on a road trip across the US. Is that what it is? I might be completely off here. And I believe it's set in the context of the Beat generation. Oh, yes, this one I also want to get to soon. This one I bought very recently. It's The Devil on the Cross. And it's basically recounting the story of Europe's invasion and occupancy of Africa and basically the influence of European and Western tradition and Western ideology on Africa. We then have another Romanian classic. This one is Mihai Minescu Basme. So this is basically more of a children's story fairy tale collection. Mihai Minescu is our biggest poet, so he's like the #1 literary figure. He's the Dante of Romania, basically. I don't know, this is very like childish, so I think I would probably get a bit bored, but I kind of just want to read them just to have that kind of literary context of Romanian literature. Emma Austen, which I also have not interestingly read yet, and I think it's probably one of her most beloved works in contemporary time. Like I think before YouTube and BookTok and everything started, her most beloved work was Pride and Prejudice. But now, since people are starting to reread her works more widely and speak about them, I feel like Emma gets a lot of love. And so I'm really interested to give it a try. I'm not the biggest fan of Jane Austen. I like her books, but I'm not head over heels with her. So I'm interested to see if I'll like Emma. Okay, we've made it to the very bottom shelf. So from this one, again, it's mostly classic novels, but somewhere here, yeah, exactly at this book, the remaining go into classics, like literally books from classical times, very, very old stuff. I'm talking about Homer, I'm talking about Dante Alighieri, like really, really old stuff. From all of these, I have not yet read 10 books. This one I was supposed to read again for my classes, and I have not. This is Madame de Lafayette, La Princesse de Clèves, which is a 17th century classic. Okay, read this one. This one I also have not read, which is really, really short, so I feel like I should just give it a try. This is Balzac, La Fausse Maîtresse. I mainly just want to read it because Balzac is like a huge French writer, and I keep saying this every single video, but I do really want to have a more solid foundation when it comes to French literature. Next we have Rilke, The Letters of a Young Poet, which weirdly I just have the edition in French, and it's very cool because I'll have like the French translation, but then it's also showing the German original work. I cannot read German, but I guess it's just nice to have it. And then the last one from that little stack is Balzac, Père Goriot. Again, just bought this because it's Balzac. And I think Le Père Goriot is actually one of his biggest works. Isabelle Allende, A Long Paddle of the Sea. I read a couple of her books in the previous years, and I just fell in love with her. I love her as a writer. I love her style. I love the themes that she explores, how she explores them. It's just, she's such a good writer. All of her stories I find are really centered around specific political climates, and that just makes them super, super interesting. This one in particular, I believe it's about the Civil War in Spain in the 1930s, and Gerard Carter's The Bloody Chamber, and a couple other shorter stories from hers, which I'm also very excited to get to. This is The Last Wolf that I have on my shelves that is not read yet, and this is The Waves by Virginia Woolf. This, I heard it's one of her most experimental and kind of wacky works, so I'm a bit scared of it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit scared, but I think it's going to be alright. I also have not gotten to Little Women yet by Louisa May Alcott. I had plans to potentially pick it up this winter during Christmas time, and then I didn't because the fall semester that kind of ended in December was really, really busy, and I couldn't handle like a big classic at that time. But maybe for 2026, maybe Christmas 2026. We also have here, this seems like more than 10 books. Did I count correctly? So this is 5, and then I had like 5 here. I don't know if I counted correctly. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But this one is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. I snatched this beautiful edition for $2 in a thrift store. I am so proud of that. For the rest of these, I think I read most of them. Oh, I didn't read this one. This is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. This one is basically just a collection of principles about what it is to be a good war leader, I believe, or how to do war the right way, which really doesn't sound like something that I really need to worry about for myself. I'm not that interested in stirring up any wars. The world doesn't need more of that, but I feel like it's just like one of those classics that is a staple in your library, so I have it. Now, this one in the middle, kind of continuing with those classics. So we have stuff like Ovid, Virgil, Homer, things like that. And here I have 6 books that I haven't read. So the first one is, how do you pronounce his name? Aeschylus? I think that's how you pronounce it. I believe he was a Greek tragedian, and he wrote Prometheus Bound and a couple other plays. So these are the plays. I actually just wanted to pick it up yesterday and I didn't, but I kind of feel like picking up a play. I don't know, I'm feeling fancy. I have read Prometheus Unbound by Percy Shelley. So I've read the poem, but I've never read the original work, so I think that should be something to do. I also have picked up Plato's The Last Days of Socrates. I'm interested to study a little bit more of Greek philosophy. I am very unknowledgeable about that. I just know kind of a couple of principles here and there, but I would really like to sit down and properly read these works and properly think about these things. Read this one, haven't read this one, Castiglione, the Book of the Courtier, which was a big kind of work in Italian classics. I've studied it, but I've never actually read the whole entire thing. This one essentially just kind of follows through a variety of conversations, gives us a bird's eye view of kind of what the Italian court life was like. Next, I have the Epic of Gilgamesh, which I have actually read a significant portion of this for some of my classes, but I've never read the entire thing. And so after I had graduated, I just purchased the whole thing, and I would like to, again, just sit down and kind of study it a bit more. This basically follows the story of creation from the Sumerian perspective and culture. And then I also have here the Quran, which I also have not read, and it's also like one of these books that, like, it's not going to be my 2026 TBR book, but it's one of those books that I would like to at some point in my lifetime, maybe when I'm a bit more seasoned and more mature, I don't know, I will sit down and like properly read it and study it. So a lot of these books are not books that I would just pick up randomly and start to read. These are more books that I would like to kind of schedule out time, hopefully when I'm going to be a bit less busy when the PhD is over or whatnot. I can really sit down and study these things properly. And then last but not least, we have more classics. These are just novels, and most of these I think I have not read. These are chunkier classics. I just put them at the bottom so they don't really weigh heavily on the shelves. From here, I have not read 7 books. We have The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, which is a classic that I have been meaning to get to for so many years, but I mean, so are the rest of these on this list, to be honest. We also have here The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, which is a story of a murder mystery set in medieval Italy, I believe, which is really, really cool and interesting setting. It's set in a church, so we have a monk who takes on this kind of role of a investigator, which I think is really cool and interesting. As I said before, I'm not really into mystery works, murder mysteries, any of that, but I feel like just the setting of this and the kind of more philosophical take on it is going to keep me intrigued and interested in the book. Haven't read Moby Dick by Herman Melville. People either love this book to bits, or they're like, the chunks of it are just so boring and technical because it kind of goes into the details of the biology of whales. But I don't know, that kind of sounds interesting to me. I do love animals, so maybe I will just eat this up. Read that one. Haven't read this one, which is also in my plans for 2026, War and Peace. We also have not read Don Quixote by Cervantes. Was supposed to read this, but I mean, my professor was kind of crazy. I mean, he expected us to read this within a couple weeks. I have like 4 other classes where I have to read full-length novels and a part-time job and some sort of social life. Like, what are you talking about? Read this in 2 weeks. Have Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens, not read. Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens, not read. Oh yeah, I read the 2 other ones. Okay. And then I also had a couple books scattered here and there in my house, but I'm only going to show you the ones that I haven't read, obviously. So first we have the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Very cool, very interesting, very interested in ancient civilizations. But again, it's one of those reads that is more for a time where I really want to sit down and study it rather than just kind of, oh, I pick it up one afternoon because I'm bored. Same with the next one, which is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I have tried to read this one before, and it reads a bit like it's kind of lecturing you on specific areas of life, on love, on crime, on selling, and I didn't really like that format, but I just have to get over my own biases about what I like or don't like, because this is just an important literary work that I really want to get to. I also have the Arabian Nights, which I would really like to get to. These just sound so marvelous and intriguing, and I grew up some of the stories from this particular particular collection. Obviously not by reading them, but just by consuming those stories in other media formats, like probably movies or animated movies. So I would really love to actually read these. I think it would be such a delight and a nostalgic moment to go back to. I also have here The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, which I would like to read probably during Halloween time. And last but not least, I have 4 books by Jules Verne. Jules Verne is a French writer. I would say you could characterize him as a science fiction writer, because back when he was writing the things that he was writing, they were not actually possible. So a lot of his writing is kind of speculative in the sense that he would just imagine how things would work in the future. So for him, it was a lot of creation and imagination. But now for us to read some of these things, it's like, oh yeah, a submarine, or, you know, someone traveling around the world in 80 days. Like, that's totally feasible. But back then, it wasn't really that feasible. It was something that was a challenge for their society. Could be considered sci-fi, but from our perspective, from our contemporary perspective, it wouldn't really read as sci-fi. So I have The Mysterious Island. By the way, I love these editions. They're so incredibly beautiful. They're just a bit heavy, so it's a bit uncomfortable to read, but they're incredibly beautiful, and I really want to collect them all. So this is The Mysterious Island. This one is probably the one that I'm most excited for. This is 20 Miles Under the Sea. Really interesting. All of these are very adventure-y type of books. And then the last one that I have is 5 Weeks in the Air Balloon. Is that how you say it? Very cool, very interesting. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now let's do the final count. We did it. The numbers have been computed. We have the final number. 134 books. 134 TBR books. I know I said at the beginning that I'm not ashamed of the amount of unread books that I have, but I do have to admit that's quite a high number, and I have mixed feelings about it. Like, I'm happy that I have this many books that I'm excited about and that are my potential future reads. So that's great. I have a lot of choice, and that gets me excited about reading, and that actually makes me read more, because I feel like I have a whole library of books that I'm excited for. But then does it maybe potentially signal some sort of addiction to buying books? Yeah, maybe it does. But I don't think it's the worst addiction you can have, so I'm okay with it. Well, thank you for joining me in raising my awareness of the number of books. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing me ramble on about books that I'm gonna read sometime in the future. Thanks for joining me. Hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.